All right, everybody, welcome to Studio B. I am your host, Pastor MDH. Thank you so very, very much for joining us here on the set today. Remember, wherever you're watching us from, whatever social media platform, make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, comment, and wherever you access your podcast from, whether that's Spotify, Apple Music, Google Music, wherever that may be, you can find Studio B on that same platform. Everybody, we are approaching 6,000 subscribers. We're trying to get to 10,000 by the end of the summer, and I know we can do that with your help. So please make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe so that you don't miss anything going on the set of Studio B. Today, I have a very, 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 very special guest. I know you guys hear me say that a lot when I open up the podcast, but this is notwithstanding, I have a very, very special guest. Let me set this up for you. You know, this month, we are starting a series called Normalizing Success. And I am bringing 4 African-American females who are very, very successful in their endeavor fields. And so today I have Dr. Shantay Grays. She holds the position of Chief Student Affairs Officer at Houston Community College. And I'll get into a little bit about how we met. But thank you so very much for joining us here on the set of Studio B. How you doing, Dr. Grays?
Good morning, Pastor, and thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here in this beautiful studio, by the way. We have a nice setup at HCC TV, but nothing like this. So I have to go back and brag a little bit on the great work you're doing here. Thank you.
I am so honored to have you here. We shared a mutual award I guess about a month and a half ago.
About a month ago now.
And when I learned of your, when I started looking at the bio in the books that they provided, it really led me to want to have you on here. Because anytime I see the word doctor, an earned PhD, that, put the hairs up on the back of my head, because education is a real big thing for me. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do professionally. Kind of give us the 30,000-foot view of that.
Well, I'm happy to do that. But let me first say doctor is just a title. It's just 2 letters in the front of my name. I worked hard for that, but I'm Shantay Grays, a country girl from a small town in northeast Louisiana, Ruston, Louisiana. It's about 2 miles just east of Grambling, where I grew up. I attended Grambling State University.
Go ahead.
Tigers.
All right. Go Tigers.
I have come from a long legacy of Grambling Tigers. But yeah, grew up in a small town and was raised by my parents, my mother and my stepfather. My dad lived in the same town, but the backbone was our grandmother, who lived a big mama. Everybody who doesn't have a big mama.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, just being able to grow up and to have her nurture and guide us was really instrumental in everything that we did. So she always, infused in us the idea that going to school, it didn't matter what we did, get a trade, get a job, but you had to do something, right?
Yes.
And doing that, I think, growing up where there was Louisiana Tech right there in the city of Ruston, and then 2 miles just down the road is one of the most historically Black colleges and universities in the country. How could I not? Starting there and then just kind of exploring what I wanted to do. I went to major in psychology, and then I thought, you know what, maybe I want to be a lawyer. Yeah, and after graduating, I quickly realized my parents were no longer going to foot the bill. They did all that they said they could do.
All that we can do.
That's right. They were no longer going to foot the bill. So I moved here because I do have roots in Houston. My grandmother's parents were actually from Houston. My grandfather also is a Houston native. So I have roots run deep in Houston, and came to Houston after graduating, enrolled at Texas Southern.
Come on now.
And was there for one semester. For one semester, because reality kicked in. I had to get a job. I had to pay my own way. It was, growing up and being an young adult, you realize quickly that you have to prioritize some things like paying bills and buying food and things like that. So quickly decided, well, maybe I need to sit out for a minute. I couldn't handle it. But I jumped right back in. I did. I was blessed with the opportunity to work at Houston Community College right out of college.
Wow.
I worked in a variety of capacities. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we talk about my career professionally. But it's just been a great journey. I don't have children. I do have a sister, a deceased sister whose daughter I raised as a daughter of my own. She's 23 now, and guess where she's attending college?
Oh, my goodness. Look at that. It don't fall too far from the tree. Huh?
She is, and I've got two brothers. Both one lives in Dallas and the other in Louisiana. Great parents, great family structure. Both of my parents are small business owners. My mom's a hairdresser, been a hairdresser for 20, well, more than that now, about 35 years. My stepdad is a tree arborist.
Wow.
In other words, he cuts down trees.
Yeah, come on now.
He cuts down trees, but
which is a good living.
That's right. But hardworking, both of them hardworking, did all they could to provide for their children, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be a reflection of their work and all that they poured into to me and to my siblings as well.
Now, you said a couple of different things that we're going to pull out here. One, that your grandmother was influential in your life. So I've said many times before that one of the problems that we're facing right now, Sister Grays, is that we have an absence of big mamas. Big mama is now 35 years old.
That's true.
And so we don't have young ladies sitting down at the feet of their elders, and we don't have young men sitting down at the feet of their elders. So we're missing a very important component to how we were raised. Now, I'll be 48 years this year, and I've been raised around the old school. So, I sit and I glean from those who are much, much older than me, who have some life experience and some girth that they can kind of pour into me. We're missing that now in our times today. But I want to, you talk about education, and education is vitally important. Vitally important. You talk about, that you went to Grambling. Did you go to Grambling? No, you went to TSU.
I went to Grambling.
You went to Grambling.
Graduated from Grambling.
Graduated, okay, but you went to TSU, and I want to hold right there because you said after the first semester you had to catch your breath.
That's right.
And I think that's very, very important because many of us don't understand that college life. And so when we get into it, it kind of hits us from all different sides.
Oh, yes.
And then taking a breath to trying to get your feet up under you is sometimes a very, very important move. I did that myself. And so kind of talk about that process and what that looked like in your life.
Yeah, and it's what we call it is level setting, right? It's a reality check for most of us. So I was working, moved here, decided I needed to work because, as I shared, I had to pay bills. I was living on my own and attending college the first semester. Law school is very difficult. So you have to plan, you have to designate time to study, and I found it to be a challenge for me. So rather than be a failure, or at least, failing to try, I decided, let me just take a step back. Let me reorder my priorities. Let me first get my feet, in the industry at least, or find some stable employment that allows me to take care of myself and sustain myself, and then go back. What's important, though, is going back.
Yeah, there you go.
But I didn't go back to Texas Southern, I will have to admit. I did not. It turns out that God had other plans for me. So as I was engaging in this thought of becoming a lawyer, I started working at HCC, and I fell in love with it. Had no idea that a community college could offer as much opportunity as it did, even for me. So starting out, I worked in human resources, and let me tell you, I did the grunt work. I will say that it is, success is not something that's measured by how big your paycheck is, or how large your home is, right? It really is measured about how people respect you enough to put you in positions where they help elevate you and motivate you. And I have been tremendously blessed, having been at that college for 23 years. Started as an HR clerk, then moved up quickly to become a transcript evaluator. I worked a little bit in student services as an administrative assistant for the associate vice president, and today I'm the chief student affairs officer.
Look at God.
And I'm saying that to say that the pathway to leadership and to success really has multiple entries. Don't be too prideful. I had a bachelor's degree, but I knew that I needed to at least build relationships and start at least at the ground level to learn more about this industry that I knew nothing about. So taking those roles that were paying very little, and I had to get there because I had to take a second job just to make ends meet. I was working in a smoothie shop. I was working in a smoothie shop, but because I was so passionate about it and because I wanted to learn more, I stayed with it. And then over time, I had great leadership who, again, saw something in me that I had not yet seen in myself and just kept elevating me. I mean, I think I averaged, and I tell people this not because I'm bragging, but it's because I wanted to be a motivation to some. Every 2 years, I was moving up within that organization. And that's the truth. Moving from an HR clerk to a higher paying transcript evaluator to a manager to a director to chief of staff for 3 chancellors. Then from there going into an associate vice chancellor role and now vice chancellor. And I did it because I wasn't too prideful. Yeah. And I was grateful every step of the way. But understanding that sometimes I have to roll up my sleeves. I can't assume that any job or task is beyond me. And I did it. I volunteered for everything I could to get my face out there, but to learn more. I became a sponge. And I really think that that's what helped trigger my journey. I do want to share one thing that I think will blow the minds of most people who don't understand the importance or the value of education, and why finding and putting your feet in good soil, planting that seed in good ground, so that it becomes something that's fruitful and nurtures, will eventually bear good fruit. Mm-hmm. I worked at HCC, I think, for a total of 15 years, and the leadership at the time, I knew nothing. I didn't think the chancellor knew my name, and I didn't expect anything significant. I applied for a leadership training academy, got the position or got the opportunity to go through this year-long training, professional development, very engaging. And from that experience, one of the external facilitators, who's the president of a national organization around community colleges, recommended to my boss or to the chancellor of the system at the time that I be a doctoral candidate. He recruited me to come to the University of Texas at Austin, wanted me to pursue my doctorate, and HCC paid 100% of the cost.
Wow, my goodness.
100% of the cost. I had full salary. I had full release for a year and a half to complete my studies. But it was so overwhelming for me, Pastor, because here I am, small country girl from Ruston, Louisiana, who knew no one, honestly, in the community college system. I just worked hard. I was nice to people. I was fair. I was honest. But I do believe that those are things that Big Mama instilled in
Absolutely.
me. Look a man in his eye and be truthful. Be honest. Don't lie. Don't steal. All of those things.
Bedrock principles.
Yeah, and that's what really resonated with the leadership there. They saw, again, something in me that I had not yet seen in myself. And I just became so overwhelmed with gratitude and that God had opened these doors for me, because I knew that it wasn't on my own merits that I had been placed in that position. And I knew that it wasn't because of my own merit that I achieved the success that I have today. But that's just the expectation.
Yeah,
right?
come on now.
That is something that this is not out of the ordinary.
Yes.
God He is blessing people every single day. And so I'm just an example, and I hope I'm an inspiration to others about what He can do, right? That when I see other people getting blessed, I say, Lord, I know mine is on the way.
Come on,
I'm
you're in the neighborhood.
I'm going to sit around and wait. I know it's coming because I see it. And so I'm hopeful that when people hear my story, they see my journey, that they're getting inspired, and that they are, reassuring their faith. They're reaffirming it in the Word of God, and that they are standing firm on the commitment that they know that He's already made. I just want to be that guide. I want to be that inspiration to others as they're seeing, thinking about the possibilities and what could happen.
So let me tell you, you said at the beginning that DR is just 2 letters on the front of your name, but let me, and I will call you Sister Shantay.
Please.
I'll call you Sister Grays. I will say, but I want to commend you because here's the platform of what I'm saying. Exactly what you said. I have ruffled feathers here for about the last 2 years, Sister Grays, because what I am saying is that there is a narrative out there for Black America. When you're looking at media, when you're looking at the platforms, there is a narrative that they try to put black people in, but black people are not homogenous, so you can't place all black people in one box. And so what I've been desperately trying to do is change that narrative by saying that success for the African American man or woman is just a norm. I grew up in a house where my grandmother did not have, she got to the 7th grade, I believe. She was a worker. She was a waitress. She washed dishes. She went on to be with the Lord, God bless her soul, about 2.5 years ago. But this was one of the most successful women that I've ever known in my life. She instilled great pride in work. And when I graduated college, when I owned my first home, my grandmother told me that she was so proud of me because she said the things that I had to go through in my childhood, I did that so that my kids and my kids' kids would have the opportunity to succeed. And so when I look at success among the African American community, I like to highlight those like yourself, those who have persevered, those who have gone through the valley and come out on the other side. And then we can look around to everybody else and say, listen, this is not a one and done kind of deal. Right. This is just what we do. And I shared with the men last night on our Monday nights teaching that, Sister Grays, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Our forefathers have moved mountains. For Shantay Grays to be here, for Marcus Holman to be here. They've moved mountains. They went through heinous acts of horror, and they endured it with pride, with strength, and with dignity, so that we, on the other side of that horror, can now stand in the positions that we stand in. So when we're looking at our lives and what we've been able to do, I want to say to all those who are watching and listening that this is just what we do. And so I know that it's 2 letters, but those 2 letters were hard, that you put in a lot of hard work in order to attain it. And so I don't want to discount that lightly, but I want you to give me kind of the earliest visions of your life. Like when you looked at your life as a child, what did you see yourself doing? What was your grand portrait that you were painting? You know,
and it's funny because I loved to write as a child, and I remember being during the summers when I would visit Big Mama. I would sit on her front porch and I would write like stage plays. I would write the script and I'd have my siblings act it out. And I thought, I really want to be a writer. Had no idea, what that entailed or what the expectations were. But I did really well in school in English, was horrible in math. So I knew my limits, but I knew that there was some passion there. And then over time, I decided, well, as I pursued, worked through high school and then went on to Grambling, I decided, maybe perhaps I can still use those talents, writing, my very strong writing skills. So I became a psychology major. It was general enough that it allowed me some flexibility to go between business and private practice or explore other options. But then I got a master's in public administration. And that's where I thought, okay, well, this is really opening doors. I thought about policy work in higher education. Then I thought about, again, thinking through, the background that I had, or at least the one semester of law school. Maybe there could be some legislative work I could do. So I pursued, well, maybe I could work for a public office. Didn't want to run for public office, but could be, a chief aide or have some work at the legislative level in terms of helping develop policy. And then as I continued to work at HCC, more and more the passion started to resonate. And I truly believed that I was planted there. I did not expect to be at HCC for 23 years. So obviously I started very young. But I didn't expect to be at that college that long. But I realized that all of the things that I was passionate about, writing, and then my love for policy, and then helping people and really identifying how I can better serve the disenfranchised and the marginalized communities. Because you're right, Black people are not a monolith. And we are the ones who are ideally better served at community colleges anyway. I want to keep putting that plug for Houston Community College because I have some things to share. Yeah. But the idea is expressing to people, you can do this. Let me be very clear about a PhD. It does not mean you're smart.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Come on now.
What it means is you had enough tenacity to finish what you started. That's
on.
it. Anyone can earn a PhD or EDD. It is all about how much is in you to drive you to finish what you started. So finishing the race.
Come on
That's
now.
it. And that when I say
Yeah.
that, you know, Pastor Holman, about these 2 letters, because I as we think about normalizing this is not an exception. This is something that we should expect from all of our children, all of our youth. Even if you don't pursue a doctorate, become a small business owner.
Yeah.
You know, to move from the idea of finding a job to nurturing your passion and then creating that passion to earn income and creating, you know, generational wealth for years to come. And I think that's resonating with some. I have a good friend, and I'll stop, whose 17-year-old daughter. She saw her parents, both are entrepreneurs. She calls me Aunt Tay. But this 17-year-old child had a passion for cooking, and I told her, you know, you really should. I said, why don't you think about doing that? Let's go to culinary school. So she said, you know, I can train myself to cook. If people will buy it, I can do it. To this date, this child has had 3 pop-up shops. She's got a team of brand ambassadors. So she's gone beyond what I even thought I could offer in terms of entrepreneurial spirit. She's got brand ambassadors, so other youth who are subscribing to the things that she's doing, promoting her brand. And she's now got a national beverage distribution company that's sponsoring her work right here in Houston. She's only been doing it for about a year and has grown tremendously. It's those types of things that we need to instill in our children. If you see it, if you feel it, if it's something you're passionate about, then let's figure out how we can make that work for you. This is not an exception. This is something that we want to expect.
Exactly.
No exceptions, expectations is what we're saying.
There you go.
Right?
I'm getting ready to call you preacher here just a little bit.
That's the truth.
Because you're talking my language. Yeah. Because this is what we are about. Mm-hmm. And when you're looking at, you know, passions are aligning right here because, and those have heard this story ad nauseum, but it's one of the things that drive me. My mother had me when she was 16 years old. She dropped out of school for a minute, went back and got her diploma, eventually wound up graduating from the University of Houston with a degree in business. And so I'm 48 years old. I've never saw my dad a day before in my life. I've only talked to him one time. Grew up in Third Ward, Texas, in the CUNY home. So, you know, all of Third Ward and all of that, and that brings along. But my mom would never give me an excuse. She raised me by saying that all that I overcame, I did the hard work, is what she used to always say. I did all the hard work. Now I'm expecting you to do your part. And Shantay, what I've done on this podcast and even in my pastorate is we address issues in the community that we need to address: economic reform, educational reform, prison reform. But one of the quickest ways to close the gap is in education.
It is.
It's one of the quickest ways that you can close the gap. Now, we just talked about that not everybody is built for a 4-year degree, but there are so many different trade schools. There's so many different ways to advance the mind that it is incumbent upon us to embrace education. I shared with some people that there is a time in our history where reading was illegal. Mm-hmm. And now we don't want to go to school. There's a point in time in our lives to where our forefathers who were taking on immeasurable challenges would sneak over into the corner and try to read these books. And when they got caught, horrible things will be done upon them. And now we're in a position to where we are getting free education. We can get the education that we need, and we're not taking advantage of it. All of my children, when we talk about this is the bar, this is not where we're shooting for them. This is just where you're going to live. Mm-hmm. This is where you're going to live, right? This is where you're going to live. And so talk about a little bit about the education and about how education helps to better the person. And again, maybe it's not a 4-year track. Maybe it's a 2-year trade. Maybe it's a certification. Mm-hmm. There are many different ways that we can travel now, but talk about the benefits of education.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head, Pastor Holman. It's I don't think people know what they don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. every credential you earn, even if it's a level 1 certificate, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means, every credential you earn increases your earning potential by at least $15,000 to $20,000.
Look at go.
So without a high school diploma, average salary for a high school graduate is about $25,000, which is still below the poverty level. If you have children, more than 2 children, really one, you can't survive with just a single individual with $25,000 a year. But add to that just a certificate. So if you CNA, right, or you want to become a HVAC tech with a level 1 certificate or an apprentice, each time you're earning a credential, it increases your earning potential, $10,000 to $25,000.
Wow.
So imagine what that looks like. Even if you don't pursue a bachelor's degree, that is perfectly okay. We have graduates at Houston Community College who leave us after a 4-week or 8-week training program. It's in our process technology program, but it's not the certificate, but the degree, but it is a certificate. 8 weeks of training, and they can leave us making $65,000 a year.
My goodness.
Okay. These are individuals do you know what? Didn't you hear me tell the story that I had to work in a smoothie shop? I had to work full time, and I wasn't earning $65,000 a year. Had I known and had even the idea that community college really is about creating opportunity. This isn't about, putting some letters on your back. It's great to have an affiliation, but it does no good if it can't put food on the table and feed your children.
Yeah, come on.
So I want to be real with people and share with them. It's starting there. Even for most of our community, there's this nuance or this taboo idea about going to college and how, for Black men especially, because my doctorate and my focus of my studies are on Black male student success, they struggle with the two selves, right? They've got the one self that is, it's me. I am the gentleman in the streets, is who the community knows, and then. But this other me is the one who wants to do well. But I got to carry this image with me. So I'm battling with this internally. And I would say to that individual who's struggling, it doesn't matter who you're presenting yourself to the public. You've got to think beyond where you are today. So if it's about providing for your family, creating an opportunity that gives you a living and sustainable wage, pursue that construction technology certificate. We have weekend programs that allow students, if you're working full time and you have a family, because most of our students at HCC do, our average student age is 26 years old. Going back to school, don't let age be a situation or a concern.
Say that
for
again.
you. And that's the truth. We are celebrating graduation this week at HCC. Thursday, we're celebrating the achievements of our high school equivalency graduates. So that's our GED and our Text Chase graduates. We have a ceremony for them. We're also celebrating individuals who are earning their associate's degree and their certificates, workforce training certificates. Huge ceremonies, one of the largest ceremonies that we have in the city here. And we have graduates ages 18 to 80. Wow. In those ceremonies. And I can tell you in each instance, some of them are coming because it's just about, fulfillment of that credential, something that they wanted to earn. But most of our graduates are leaving us who are not planning to transfer to a 4-year institution. They're going right into the workplace. Yeah. And we are deadly focused on getting our students in, connecting them to career and employment services. So by the time you leave HCC with your credential, your certificate, or your associate's degree, we've got a pathway for you that gets you right into the workplace. And there's so many opportunities. We need plumbers. We need electricians. We need people to build homes. We need process technologists. Even to this day, you hear about what's going on with the gas pipeline, but when that comes back up, we're going to have process engineers and technologists to help support that. Community college offers that.
Now, let me ask you, because here at the Church of Bethel's Family, we've worked hand in hand with community college. And those who know about Bethel's, this is a holistic ministry, Sister Grace. So what we do is everybody got to get Jesus, right? That's the baseline. We got to make sure that we connect you back to your Father so that you can understand your purpose in life, walk out that purpose with authority and with passion. So once we connect you with God, once we connect you with His Son, you believe that He died for your sins. After that, that person still needs education. That person still needs a job. That person still needs food in their stomach. So we're here at the Church of Bethel's Family. We have what's called a holistic ministry. So we got a food pantry here. We have a dentist office on site. We had a course just last week about phlebotomy classes. We worked hand in hand with ACC by doing our GED classes. And so what it means is, what we do is we want people to bloom where they're planted, right? So we want to create an era of success. And by doing that, what we're doing is enhancing the generations that come, because I believe it is our job to make the world a better place for the generations that are following us. And so our ceiling should be our kids' floor.
That's right.
Right? And so it's about helping people to understand that no matter where you are, bloom where you're planting. Success can be found. When I look at my own life and I look at all the challenges that I've overcome, and by God's grace, allowing me to do certain things. I've traveled to over 31 different countries in the world, led over 100 international mission trips. Thousands of people have been on that trip. I am the only person in my family that has traveled outside of the country. I got 4 kids, 3 of them in college right now. And when I look back at all the obstacles that God has allowed me to overcome, I look at those obstacles as stepping stones. And so that's going to lead me into a place to where I want us to talk, because many people look at the destination, but they ignore the journey. And see, the power is in the journey. It's not when you get there.
That's right.
You talked about, the PhD, and the PhD doesn't mean that you're smart, but it just means that you have the wherewithal to stick with something until you cross the finish line. And so talk about some of the challenges that you've had to face in order to get to the position where God has you right now. I know God's grace has covered you. His grace and mercy has followed you all the days of our lives. We know that. And glory be to God for that. Glory for His Son. But talk about some of the challenges that you've personally had to overcome in order to be sitting at this table right now enjoying the fruits of your life.
And, I think about, I'm reflecting on a couple of instances because if I painted this picture that it was all rosy, that my journey was, and then let me make that correction right now, because it was not. The enemy always comes when God has something planned for you, right? Just as you are set up to be blessed, there's the enemy on each hand. And I can remember certain situations where there were colleagues who were former friends. As you are being elevated each time, there's attacks, and they're attacking your character. They are doing all they can to help really create your demise. I had to come to grips with that. I had to realize that not everybody was going to go, on the journey with me. I had to ask God to help me, hold me and sustain me, be it put a hedge of protection around me, because I needed it. There were times where I didn't know where my next, how I was going to pay my electric bill. I told you I was still earning. I was poor. I was definitely poor. And I was of the belief also that I couldn't call my parents to do that, because if I did, then I've let them down, right? I mean, I knew that I could always go back home, but what would that yield me? Nothing but another opportunity to go back and say, I tried, but without really giving it everything that I had. I shared that my parents were small business owners. I had 3 other siblings that they also had to provide for. So the reality hit me really quickly that you're going to have to make it happen for yourself. And you can do this, but you're going to have to understand that not everybody's prepared to celebrate your success.
Yeah.
You're going to lose friends along the way. You're going to grow. And there's nothing wrong with that, honestly. It's not that you suggest that you're bigger or better than anybody else. Sometimes friends and friendships just grow apart. And the sooner you realize that, the better off you'll be. You also have to understand that you need to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you.
That's a good word.
You do. You learn, you realize that if you're the smartest person in your circle, then there's something wrong with your circle. So you continue to keep yourself around people who are smarter than you, who you're learning. Like you suggested, Pastor, sit at the feet of elders. I can remember early on at my church, my former church, my pastor would say, the elders are here to teach, and the youth are here to learn. And we're going to do that in every step of the way. And at each opportunity, we were investing in financial literacy, helping us. We purchased the Dave Ramsey classes on financial literacy because that's how important that it was for us as growing up, even being young adults and starting out on our own. We made some poor financial decisions. I know I did. I thought clothes and fashion and other material was more important than paying utilities, and had the lights come off a couple of times. But the reality is that I had to level set. I had to take a step back and say, girl, you got to get it together. You can't call mama and daddy. So you're going to have to reprioritize some things and think about is this something that you want to sustain over time? Where do you set priorities? How do you balance a budget? How do you pull back and ensuring that, number one, you're staying on the mission. You've identified a goal, but now how are you going to get there? And then once you reach that goal, how are you going to deal with all that's going to come your way? People are attacking you and they're making, spreading rumors, and those things happen. And it's really about keeping yourself grounded. And I have to say, to your point earlier, also, it's getting some Jesus.
Yeah.
I could not do it.
Yeah.
I know that I could not. I get in my way all the time, and I tell God, I want to be in your will, so I have to put me aside so that I can ensure that I am doing exactly what you've lined up for my life. And it's because of that. That's the truth, Pastor Holman. It is not because I have done anything remarkable. I don't think I'm exceptional by any means. I think what is clear is that God has been good to me.
That's right.
And I've been rooted in the Word of God. Luke 6:38 is my life's philosophy. I'm going to give, and I expect given back.
Pressed
good
down.
measure,
Yeah.
pressed down, shaken together, and that's the mantra that I live by to this day. I'm investing in other young African American female leaders who are aspiring to become to greatness. I'm telling them all that I went through because I want them to see this as a reality for them. This is not something that is outside of what's expected for you. You can do it. Let me invest in you like somebody else invested in me. I don't mind mentoring. I don't mind dedicating my time and committing to this because it's that important. And it's like you said, we've got to create this idea that we're investing in generational wealth, and we are investing in this mindset that changes where we have been to where we're going, and understanding that the idea for our youth and our children for tomorrow is really that they are prepared to be leaders. They are set up for success as long as they can believe it and they see it.
Now, when you talk about that, Shantay, when you talk about the 30,000-foot view of generational wealth, the Bible does say that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children. Mm-hmm. But there are some things in which the gap in our community, now I'm talking specifically about our community, that we don't talk about. Like, we don't talk about money management, the basis of money management. We typically are taught you need to go to work, pay the bills, retire, sit on the porch, and rock the rest of your life away. So we don't talk about, the investment strategies that other ethnicities, other nationalities employ, and that how they transfer generational wealth down and down and down and down. And so when you're talking about this all goes back to that same word, education. Right. I have a good friend of mine, a really good friend of mine. He is not a college graduate. He hadn't done any of that, but he is well-read. He's well-read. Mm-hmm. He's one of the smartest people that I know, but he has no certificates on his wall. He is by far one of the smartest people I know. It's because he invests in reading. He reads, and he reads and reads and reads. He's very well read. And as you're talking to this gentleman, you can just hear the wisdom of the books in which he's read, because it has shaped his life in so many different forms. So when you talk about you coming over this and you're coming through this, and they've made some mistakes in this past, some stuff over here that I wish I could have done better. But when we get to the place to where we are right now, and this is what I want everybody to understand, life is going to bring with it challenges, Shantay. It's just life. Jesus said that it's going to rain on the just and the unjust.
Yeah.
It's going to rain on you, okay? You're going to try to do some great things in life. There's going to be some people that's going to get in your way. Come here, Judas, talk about what he did to Jesus. Okay, so this is just par for the course. But I believe with all of my heart, my mind, and my soul that 2 Corinthians 12:9, it's true. Paul said that his grace is sufficient. Right? So when you're going through the walks and challenges of life, you're able to look back and say, man, I overcame that. Okay, you'll look over here and say, man, I overcame that. I gained something from here. I gained something from there. And because I had to go through those challenges, it has made me a much better person. And so when you're looking at somebody right now, that young lady, that young boy, that person that's watching, that person that's listening, how would you encourage them if they're in the valley of life? Because, let's be honest, there are some times in which we wanted to tap out. Life has kind of gotten challenging. Didn't think that we were going to be able to make it. Sometimes we wanted to tap out. So what would you say to that person right now that's saying, hey, that sounds good, but I'm in the valley right now, I'm in the storm. How would you encourage that person to continue to go on?
I would say, as you mentioned, Pastor, we all go through the valley. But one thing about it is, if you fall down, if you can look up, then you can get up, right? And I would say to you that there's no feat that's immeasurable, nothing that you can't overcome. I shared with you don't have to be a genius; you just have to have the will to do it. But through faith and with God, know that all things are possible. Anything that you wish you set out to achieve. I shared the example of a 17-year-old girl who wanted to cook, and how she is now a budding entrepreneur. There's nothing unique about that situation. There's nothing unique about me. All I'm asking is that you have enough gratitude for God to wake up in the morning. If you can plant your feet on the ground, then that's a new day every day to start afresh. It should give you motivation each day that you wake up and say, God, I didn't deserve it, but I'm here and I'm going to make the best of it. I might be in the valley today, and I might be in the valley tomorrow, but I know that I won't last there. If you're looking for a job, pack a lunch. Take your lunch with you. If you're expecting rain, take an umbrella. What I'm saying is prepare yourself for what you're expecting. If you're expecting great things, then you should operate in that wisdom. Operate knowing that you are capable of doing anything above and beyond what you had even asked for through faith and with God.
Now, I pray, and as God examines my heart right now, and let me set this up for you, Shantay. The reason we're on this is our 50th episode. This was started in March of 2020, and God has, done what I didn't even think. It wasn't in my plans to do this at that level. The platform of Studio B was to take everyday, normal life and merge them with a biblical belief. Because there are people watching on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube that will never don the halls of a church. They will never come and listen to somebody preach behind a lectern. So what we do is we take mainstream issues, whatever is on the news of that day, we talk about it. We talk about it in depth, but we don't just leave it lingering. We connect whatever that is to what God says, right? And give them something that is important for me is hope, okay? Because there needs to be hope in a hopeless society. So the platform of Studio B is to talk about mainstream issues that are affecting Main Street people and then connect them to what God says on that issue. And one of the things that this particular series is doing now about normalizing success is that when you look at the life of Jesus, one of the reasons why he was shunned by the masses is because he didn't have a good pedigree. They say, man, that's Joseph's son. Like, his mother, she wasn't married when she had him. There's no way that this could be the king of the Jews, right? So he didn't come from a good pedigree. He was a carpenter all of his life. He didn't have, the glitziest of robes. He didn't have this very influential entourage. He was a very normal guy by all standards. So if you looked at him from afar, you wouldn't consider him to be successful. And so when I look at success, I try to redefine success. Because, Shantay, everybody's not going to be able to operate on the 50th floor. Everybody's not going to have 3 letters in their name. They're not going to be CEO, COO, or CFO. So we have to redefine what success is. Somebody has to take out the trash. Somebody has to cook the meals. But what I like to encourage people is if you go out every single day and put in a hard day's work, you're giving God something to bless. You're putting something in the master's hand. Now, maybe I can't be like that guy. Maybe I won't live in River Oaks. Maybe I won't have a palatial estate. But I can go out and I can work the thing in which God has given me. And by doing so, I'm allowing God to bless me. So how would you define success? What does it look like in the eyes of Shantay Grays? What does success look like to you?
So I think success is really, I think I may have even alluded to this earlier. It's not measured by the things you have. In my view, it really is measured by the relationships that you've been able to establish, the fulfillment that you get from doing things that bring you happiness and seeing it in others. The way I measure success is how many people I've been able to help as a result of the position that I'm in. If I'm not helping someone who is also seeking a similar opportunity or who's seeking just an opportunity in general, then I'm not successful. Yeah. And it really is about, again, expressing my gratitude to God for putting me in the position. I believe that's why I've been placed in the position that I'm in. But seeing others be successful as a result of my direct influence or coaching or mentoring really is how I define success. So if once my child graduates college, hallelujah, praise God, that's one. As my executive assistant finishes her bachelor's degree and she pursues other opportunities and I help set her up in that position, praise God. These are the ways that I measure success personally. That may not be applicable to everyone else, but for me, it's knowing my purpose, again, as I stated, helping people. I recognize where God has placed me, and I know that it's for a reason. And in order to do that, I need to see it realized in others. I need to see that manifestation of others being prosperous, and not financially, right? Yeah. But being able to achieve the goals for which they've set out to accomplish. Now,
when you get to heaven, everybody, here's one of the things that I believe God's going to judge us on is the human capital that we have. And I don't think that we take stock or inventory on human capital. And what I mean by human capital is the people that you are investing in, the people that you are helping to elevate. There's a story in Acts chapter number 3 where this man is set at the gate called Beautiful, and James and Peter were going into the temple every single day as was their custom. And this man looks up to them and he says, expecting to get some money for them. And Peter speaking says, silver and gold have I not. But what I do have, in the name of Jesus, rise and walk. But here's a part of the story that many of us don't see. Peter reached out his hand to help him up. He didn't just give him an encouraging word. He reached out his hand to help him up. And I believe that's human capital. Yes, we can give the fancy, the hallelujah shouts and things like that. But how are we investing in people? How are we helping people to be better, to be productive, to connect to their God-given purpose? It's human capital. And I believe when we start giving human capital, that's when we're going to start seeing the greatest return on our investments. Yes, we can put some money in a 401k. We can put it in stock options. Yes, we can do all of that stuff. But are you investing in people? Because Jesus invested in people. And so as you're looking at your life and this position that God has allowed you to have, to where you can touch so many different people's lives in so many different walks of life, how are you using that right now? I mean, what type of joy does that bring you, being able to be in this position, which is a God position?
It is indeed.
It's a God position.
It is.
What kind of joy does that bring you, knowing that you are able to help people in so many different walks of life?
There's not a day that goes by. Houston Community College is one of the largest in the city and in the state. It's the 4th largest in the nation. And not a day goes by that I don't say, Lord, I need you to give me the wisdom of Solomon, because everything I'm doing is impacting the lives of over 100,000 students. In this role, I have a direct impact on the lives of so many people educationally, as they're thinking about how they're going to make their journey. Every decision I make is going to impact those people. I don't want to take that for granted. So guide my feet, order my steps, so that I am doing everything to the glory and benefit of you, and so that the passion and the goals that these individuals are pursuing are realized as a result of that. I don't take that for granted. I wake up, who has that opportunity?
Yeah.
Who, other than being a pastor of a mega church and working in the community, but who has that kind of opportunity and influence and power to be able to impact so many through education, especially? And I'm just grateful every day for that opportunity. I do not take that for granted at all.
Now, you have several accolades. As I was reading your profile and, doing my due diligence to make sure that I encapsulated all that God is doing. And I know the time will quickly get away from us and, laying out the list of all that God has done in your life. But I believe that it's important to understand where God has you and for the purposes that God has you there. So what motivates you? I know you just gave me a little snapshot of it, but when you get out of bed in the morning, what's that driving force that says, let's get it? What's that motivating factor? What's that one thing? Even when you're tired, even when you've had a bad day, even when you feel like, okay, this is not the day, what's the thing that you have that pushes you forward? For me, it's my family. Mm-hmm. My family is a motivating force for me. My wife and my 4 children, it is a motivating force for me to go out there and do positive things in life. So what's your motivating force? What's that thing that pushes you when you don't want to be pushed?
So I agree that my family is indeed my motivation. When I think about work, I think about my purpose and what I'm doing each day. Family, no doubt. My parents are proud peacocks. I can tell you. My stepdad calls me doctor. He doesn't even call me by my name anymore. He's so proud. But I also think about the types of students that we serve at HCC. First generation. Some who would have never set foot on a college campus if it weren't for that flyer or having made some connection with somebody, and how overwhelming that could be. For me, it's about the single parent who's coming back, who's trying to get a credential to earn more money to take care of their children. For me, it's about the young Black boy who has often been told that he's either going to end up in prison or he's going to die, and we see it every day. Who's coming to college just to try to overcome those obstacles that have already been placed before him. For me, it's the undocumented immigrant who is fearful of ICE and those any other external circumstance that may hinder their ability to realize citizenship when they're just trying to earn a livable wage to take care of their family. It's youth of dreamers, it's children of dreamers, or what we call dreamers, who are here excited and passionate about education. Every day, I have a direct impact on their lives. Every day. I mean, from the way we celebrate their achievements during commencement to the emails that we send encouraging them to complete their studies. Every single day, I think about because you know what? There's undocumented immigrants who live in my community. Mm-hmm. I have a really good friends who I went to college with who are dreamers, or children, have children who are dreamers. I also have first generation college students in my family. I have cousins. Think about single parents. Everyone. It's a reflection of the community that I live in. So every day I have an opportunity to make an impact on the people who look like me, who may not look like me, but who are better served by someone who looks and feels, who've gone through similar situations. I don't take that for granted. I'm excited about it.
So let me ask you, you know the story of Joseph. Now the preachery thing is coming, but I'm not going to preach. But you know the story of Joseph. Joseph sold into slavery, go to Potiphar's house, accused of rape. He spends 13 years inside of a prison, forgotten about in that prison, forgotten about by man, but remembered by God. And eventually makes his way up to second in command. And God placed him in a very strategic position so that he could impact generations not just individuals, but generations. And I believe that education can impact generations. And so you're in a position right now to where God has placed you in a Joseph chair to where you can impact dreamers. You can impact that single mother. You can impact that young boy. You can impact people. And by impacting people at an individual place, that will reverberate to generations to follow. But when you're looking at some of the things that are going on in our community right now, Sister Shantay, I believe that apparently, and please, as I try to communicate this the best way in my heart to do so, there is a narrative out there that I spoke about in the beginning of the podcast that I'm trying to fight against. And the narrative is that the African American race is like this. Here's the benchmark. And that narrative is reinforced by social media, by movies, by music, by all the stuff that we see on a daily basis that puts African Americans and even minorities, if I can go to a broader spectrum, in a very negative light. And so what I try to do is, I know too many people around me, Shantay, and you name A to Z, and any problem from A to Z, I can put my hands on somebody that has overcome that problem. I'm talking incest, rape, divorce, whatever, and literally, as a pastor here, as the executive pastor here, I deal with A to Z, people that were alcoholics, drug use, former prostitutes, name whatever problem that you want to name. I know people that I can put my hand on that have not only faced that problem, but overcome it. They haven't died in the valley. And so the picture that I try to create and the picture that I'm trying to paint of the African American community is that, first of all, our history is great, and that what we do is a part of who we are. And I believe that the greatest answer for African Americans lies within African Americans. And so this idea that we have to look for handouts and we have to look for people to pull us up and to get out, all of that stuff that is being saturated in our culture today, I'm just simply saying that the answer for it is within us, because we have done it time and time and time and time again. So I want to give you this as an open forum, and I want you to kind of elaborate the way that the Lord sees you to do. We talk about the importance of God. That is first and foremost. That I believe that African Americans, when we look back at our history, we have been, throughout our history, very spiritual people, connected to God. Even in very harsh circumstances and environments, we have been very spiritually grounded, which is how many of us have gotten to the places that we are, because our mothers and grandmothers and great-great-grandmothers were praying for us. So when you're looking at where you are right now in life and where God has you and the position that He has you in, as you are encouraging these people that may be watching, and they're looking at a Shantay Grays and they're saying, man, I dropped out of school in my first year because I couldn't handle it, but I never went back. How do you circle back around in this environment to lift that person up and say, hey, you know what, life is going to bring with you some challenges, but look at me. And Shantay, if people see the glory, but they don't know your story. And I believe when we start telling people the real story, not the polished version, I tell people about the lights being cut off. I tell people about the car being repossessed early on in our marriage. Me and my wife in year number 2 was on women, infant, and children. We were on welfare. I was pastoring a church on welfare. So people see all of this on the other side. But see, we got to tell them about that stuff. So I'm asking you, because your story is fascinating. Your accolades have been enormous. But as you look at your own personal mission statement, what is that? What is your mission statement?
So I'll say you're right. This has not been a rosy journey. I shared what I didn't share was that I have a stepdad. My father is deceased, but growing up, my father was abusive. Physically and verbally abusive. He was an alcoholic, which caused my mother to move. We moved to Houston when I was in the third grade. I'll never forget being in the car. We driving overnight. She had a small little Champion, yellow Champion. We packed up everything we could. Me being the oldest, had to help stay awake to keep my mother awake. As soon as we got to Houston to a family member's house, the car stopped, and we started over again. And I remember seeing the determination of my mother's face in ensuring that she was going to do all she could to make sure that her kids were well protected. So she made a lot of sacrifices. She stayed here. She worked as a manager of Payless Shoe Source for many years, right on MLK. For those who've been around long enough to remember that, my mother did that for many years while we were in school. And then we moved back to Louisiana because it reached a point where the city was too much. We were getting older. It was more difficult as a single parent to take care of us. And then she met a phenomenal man who God had placed in her life, my stepfather. Over years, my dad also stopped drinking, had become involved in the church. So God had really brought things together. But I'm saying that to say that this is if I hadn't shared that, you would not have known. And my situation is not unlike anyone else's. So when you think about your purpose in life and the mission, it really is about being as real as I can be. I don't want to put on any fake or airs, as the elders would say. I'm not. I want to be as real as I can be, and I want people to understand that, again, I'm not exceptional. I'm not an exception at all. This is an expectation. And the reality is that anything that we are called to do, God is not going to set us up to fail. He can do anything but fail. And I understand that I'm grounded in the Word. I can't take that for granted. Because I truly believe and strongly believe that is exactly why I'm exactly where I am at such a time as this. It is because God had ordained every single step for me. It's not by chance that I'm talking to you today, Pastor Holman. It's not by chance that I'm also out advocating in the community, going to Wesley Square Apartments later this month to also have the same conversation, because I'm truly passionate about my people. But all people, to be honest with you. But I want African Americans, particularly young African Americans, to know you are kings and queens. When you look in that mirror every day, what we see around us in today's culture is appropriated from you. People dress like you. They talk like you. They walk like you. They like your music. It is because you are creative. You are geniuses. You need to walk in your geniusness, right? You need to understand that where you are is not where you will be. And that is how I feel, honestly. And I just need people to see the motivation and to see others become reality, their dreams become reality. And it happens every day. We have had more successful entrepreneurs in post-COVID pandemic than we have ever had. It's because because of what you said, like our ancestors, out of necessity comes opportunity and innovation. We are some innovative people. Your creative genius should flow from you during this time. I'm not saying you're going to be a seven-figure millionaire, but you could certainly be in a better position than you are today. You just have to be determined. Get that credential, get some type of education, training, whatever that can lead you to a better opportunity to get you connected. It could be just a stepping stone, but taking the first step is what's going to be most important. My mission is to help others get to that point.
There you go.
That is indeed my mission.
There you go. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about it in our time, this is, I can't tell you, I was telling my wife this morning, I said, babe, as I look back over our lives, talking about my life in particular, I just see God's hand just all over it. And I believe that one of my purposes in life is to exemplify the grace of God at the highest levels. my travels all around the world, Shantay, has given me a perspective that I know that many can enjoy. I've been many different places, many different cultures, and many different people. So I have a love for people. And I know because of what God has allowed me to see and where he has exposed me, I have a different vantage point. And so because I've been to places like India, been all over Africa, and I've seen not poor people, I've seen impoverished people. I've seen where parents have to pay $20 for secondary school.
Right.
And they can't afford it, so they have to send the kids out to the fields. And then I come back to America in a land that is flowing with milk and honey. Understanding that America has a lot of warts and we still have a lot of issues that we have to address and really sit down at the table and kind of work our way through. But that America provides such a great opportunity that no matter where you are, you don't have to stay there. Mm-hmm. America afford those opportunities. And so one of the platforms that I am really enjoying right now at this stage of my life is trying to lift people up, is provide them with practical stuff that they can put their hands on. So when they hear your testimony, when they hear my testimony, they can say, I can relate to that. And then being able to see that that testimony didn't stop, but it allowed us to progress. And so that's the human capital that I think is so, so very important in our time. And I want to make sure that everybody understands. I praise God for the rappers. I praise God for the basketball players. I praise God for athletics and all of that stuff. I do. God has carved out a space for that. But, there are so many different things that we can pursue as African Americans that would not only better our community, but better the world as a whole. So I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, you don't know this, but I reached out to everybody who got the award because I wanted to personally thank them for being lights in their community. So I sent out a personal email to everybody that received that award because I love stuff like that. I love seeing young kids, the young lady that started the pressure washing business. Congratulations. You're setting a standard. You're 14 years old and you're doing this. Right. Congratulations, right? And not taking those moments for granted, but letting them know, man, your trajectory is this way. And so I want to thank you, man, because I think people need to see this. And they need to see it in such a way as they expect it. Mm-hmm. And I want to finally say this, and I'm going to give you your platform to end us out here. I have a good friend of mine that lives a couple streets down. He's an Asian American. We've talked several times before, and all of his kids, he has 5 kids, and they all stay in the house with him. All of his kids, all 5 of them go to Rice. And we were talking a few weeks ago, and we were talking about family and stuff like that. And he says, Reverend, he says, I expect my children to do greater things than I do. And he says, I don't put my kids out until they're ready to be on their own. Now, we in the African-American community, at 18 years old, you got to go.
Yeah.
But that's not what he said. His oldest child is going for her PhD, and she's 26, still staying in the house with mom and dad. And here's what she's doing. She's building capital. Yeah. So as she leaves the house, she's ready to soar. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I thought about that. I was like, wow. He said, and I say, so is this common around the Asian community? He said, oh yeah, we all do this. He said, we never put our kids out until they're ready to fly. And the words he used was, we don't put our kids out there. Our kids don't leave until they're ready to soar. That's the word they use, until they're ready to soar. I thought about that. That's the expectation. Yeah. That's not a blip on the radar.
That's right.
That's the expectation, Shantay, is that this is what you're going to do because this is the standard. And so I want to give you the last words to look into that camera right there. And I want you to give everything about HCC. I want you to plug it. I want you to give some programs that people can get involved in. And I just want you to encourage all of those who may be listening and watching right now. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. And anytime I have an opportunity to plug HCC, I will and gladly do it. Registration is underway. We are registering now for summer and for fall. The good news is, for students or individuals who are concerned about financial aid or how to pay for college, we have, because of COVID, we've received over $123 million in CARES Act funding, most of which, about 80% of that, goes directly to students. We've already dispersed $14 million for the first distribution. That's direct aid. That is not to cover the cost of tuition and fees. For students who are enrolled at HCC, if you have a flat tire or if you are concerned about utility payments or rent payments, those were checks that we put in the hands of our students because we understand that basic needs have to be met in order for your educational needs to be met. We have this semester, we'll have about 60% of our classes will be face-to-face. We are returning to campus. That's 100% face-to-face, so expect to try to get back to some sense of normalcy. But for those who aren't comfortable, 60% of our classes face-to-face and about 40% will be online or hybrid to some extent. So we have a variety of options: online on a schedule, online anytime at a time that's suitable for you, face-to-face as I shared, and then our hybrid lab courses. We offer automotive training, ASC certification for our Northeast campus, truck driving, logistics also at our Northeast, at our North Forest campus as well, our Caldwell campus, digital information technology, gaming and simulations, augmented reality. For those who are interested in gaming and video game development, we have that technology. We have a Tesla suit at our Southwest campus, which is located at 610 the West Loop, right at 610 and Fornes. So we're encouraging everyone. These are the types of programs that we have: audio recording, engineering. We have HCC TV, where our students have an opportunity to intern with our television studio to do production and sound engineering and recording engineering. Of course, we also have an engineering program partnership with UT Tyler, where you complete the first 2 years of your undergraduate studies at HCC at our A-Leaf campus, and you can also stay at the A-Leaf campus, save about $15,000 to $20,000 on tuition, and complete the last 2 years of the engineering program with the University of Texas at Tyler on the A-Leaf campus. We have a similar program with Texas A&M. We have our Coleman Health Sciences College for Health Science Professions, located in the heart of the Texas Medical Center, the only community college located in the medical center where we have real-life simulation labs. So every one of our students are learning on the same equipment that is inside the hospitals. We have a simulated medical lab, dental hygiene. I could go on and on. If you can't tell how passionate I am, you just give us a call. It's hccs.edu/apply. That's hccs.edu/apply. For those who are interested in short-term training, you don't have a lot of time and you're ready to get to work, we also offer a fast-track career training program where we have a 4-week up to 8-week fast-track certifications that get you right into the workforce. So these are high-wage, high-demand occupations that leads to a high-earning credential or high-earning livable wage. So we're ready to serve you. We're ready for you to come back to campus. We're looking forward to it. We don't want to be the best kept secret in Houston. We want people to know that we're Houston Community College and we're Houston's community college, here to serve you.
Wow. We'll make sure that we put the website at the bottom of this podcast. Dr. Shantay Grays, thank you so very much. She serves as the Chief Student Affairs Officer at Houston Community College. You are doing phenomenal. Congratulations on all your success. To God be the glory. You are not the exception. You're just part of what we do.
The expectation.
You are the expectation, and I thank you for that. I thank you for sharing your heart. It is deeply encouraging to me that those who are watching will be able to glean something from your life and use that to move forward. Thank you so very much for joining us here on the set of Studio B. And everybody remember, God loves you. God has a plan for you. No matter where you are in life, bloom right there. Until we see you next week, God bless.